Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief. So excited to bring this to you guys today. The whole gang is back together. They're a little bit, I guess, well, I shouldn't speak for Joel. Eric was a little annoyed with me that I went ahead.
I'm always annoyed with you. Don't sell yourself short like that, Chris. I am always annoyed by you.
Consistently annoyed.
Consistently.
That I went ahead and talked about the Michael Andrew interview without them. And so I want to begin this podcast. I'm joined by Joel Rawlings and Eric Weichen, blah, blah, blah. You know all about them. They're people that like to talk about swimming with me.
People.
Theoretically. And I wanted to give them a chance to respond to the interview. Also selfishly, because I forgot to mention something very important to me. So I'm going to let you guys go first, react, riff. We'll talk. What else are we going to talk about, producer Eric? What are our other two topics?
Marsh going to Cal?
Yeah, newly minted volunteer coach at Cal. And
I think he's going to be paid. I don't think he's going to be a volunteer coach. Well, we'll talk about it when we get there. Anyway,
and then
NCAA board and their release of a statement and intentions with trans athletes and what is not.
I love how we're going trans athlete. We're also going like the whole vaccination thing. We got all the hot topics. What else is left?
This is clickbait worthy,
right,
for sure.
Oh boy. I think we're wasting it all on one show that no one listens to, but all right.
It's going to be, so you know, it's going to be hard for me afterwards is what clickbait title do I choose for this? Do you know what I mean?
Streamlines are bad. Go with that one again.
just streamlines are bad and people listen to it. Go.
EVF is for suckers.
Yeah, there you go.
Although that one Coldplay song, you know, where they tried to do EDM, that was pretty good though, right? Sky Full of Stars, right? You guys like that one?
Next topic.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk about the Michael Andrew interview. Eric, despite Joel's protests, I think you brought a greater level of disappointment. So I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah. First, I did actually listen to your podcast on it, and I do appreciate you touching on the topics that you did on it, and you did a very nice job of being very polite. But that COVID section,
you should put a link to that one into this one too, by the way.
That COVID section by Michael Andrew was hot garbage. Like, it just, I was so angry at the podcast in that moment. Like, I was cursing in the airport as I was listening to it. Like,
is this specifically the vaccination portion, or just all the times he mentioned just COVID?
Just that entire section of his rationale and all the ways that he was approaching it, you know, and then capping it off with not a scientist. It's like you're spewing all this unfounded stuff. Right. All the while being the guy who's a part of the team that is training in a way that's quote unquote based in science. You spent the whole first 4 or 5 years of your career shitting, I'm going to use that word, on every other training style.
There you go, Joel. It's our one swear per podcast.
Yeah,
so you're done.
Yeah, I had a direct experience with his dad at 2016 trials where he crapped on a guy that I was helping. He was using a stretch cord, and he's like, I don't know if it works, but it looks like fun. Like, nobody invited you into that conversation. A little bit of a deep dive here with my whole experience with his family.
Here we go.
So, but just that entire part right there was just like, how are you going to just pick and choose and say these things? And I mean, that was probably the hardest part of it. I think I do agree with you in that Brett did a pretty good job with everything. You know, we can't expect an investigative journalist type approach all the time with people, especially for somebody who is not an
any of the time.
investigative
It's Brett
journalist.
Hawke.
Yeah, but I mean, but the thing is like, I know he didn't want to go down that path, but he certainly has the ability and the opportunity to go down that path a little bit if he so chooses. So I think if you're gonna go down this path of having these tough conversations, you have to know what might be coming and do the front end research a little bit. And then if you're going to have dialogue about it, don't just leave it hanging and be like, whatever, man, I support you. Like that's not the best way to handle it going forward. So if I'm going to give somebody some kind of recommendation for future on hitting those hot button topics, be ready to respond and engage, or just don't do it at all, because you just kind of left it open and hanging and just let him say things with no recourse.
Yeah,
and
no
like,
challenge
no
at
follow
all.
up. Yeah, that was the rough part. The one thing that I would like to see him do the 4 free. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think certainly he's going to be training for it. And it was just kind of funny how alluded to it. So if you're training USRPT for 400s, that's where the hundreds repeats come into play. And it was really funny to hear him talk about how he just did 3100s on 130 best average, when he could have really just said it like how it was supposed to be, where it's 3100s on 130 at 400 free pace. That's where kind of that stuff really is rooted. I don't know. It was just one of those things
Well,
where
I think you're supposed to, I mean, I don't want to be a nitpicker, but I think if you're doing 3100s, you're doing the 1500 pace set, right? The 400 pace set is 2475, if I remember correctly.
Well, okay, if he's in a long course pool, it's really difficult, I guess, in that sense. I don't know where he was training in that moment, but it's not outlandish to consider doing hundreds at 400 pace relative to hundreds at 200 pace, which, as we all know, is pretty much impossible.
Well, it's possible to do one or two.
Do you USRPT guys have like one of those old map mileage charts where you're like, I've got this 400, so I need this many hundreds, and then we go like this, and is that how you find the number?
It's based on the concept of number of times the race distance.
Yeah.
In terms of,
okay.
So there are standardized sets. That's what I'm rattling off here in the background.
Yeah.
Joel, just
so that's
at least, even though I don't do USRPT anymore, I don't want to sound like an idiot when I talk about it. So
so that, I mean, sorry to go off the tangent.
No, that's fine.
On my
I think it's
experience
good.
with the family.
All we're about is tangents.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a podcast full of tangents.
I was infuriated with his approach in response and things like that. When it come to Michael Andrew and how he talked about it, I did appreciate his candid nature and how he fell short in his IM and the things that he needs to do. And I appreciate that open-mindedness. Just wish he would be consistent with his science beliefs.
Yeah, I think that that is an important contradiction. And you know, I stick by what I said about Brett's interview style, you know, but like I wouldn't expect him to do that research on fetal cell lines that I did.
No,
but you know, it maybe you could have pushed back on the whole, like, well, I'm healthy, so I'm not getting a vaccine. Like, basically, I'm 22 years like that. That is an easier one. That's a little bit more low hanging fruit for somebody to push back on it in real time. But I have more empathy. I mean, you know, having interviewed people for a podcast, it's just really, really hard. You got a lot going through your mind. You got to, like, what am I going to ask them next? What are they saying? How do I, like, it's very, very hard to do that stuff in real time.
And I don't disagree.
I think it gives me newfound respect for anybody that does like hosts a Sunday news show, and not Chuck Todd.
Does a ton of
Chuck Todd
research.
can go F himself, but all the other ones. All right, Joel.
You know,
the thing on Chuck Todd, or you want to move on to the Michael
Andrew? I was enraged by the enrage of Eric. I'm just like, I'm getting all this rage. I'm building up. I'm like, I never wanted to watch this. Is it because again, like, if I want the Kardashians to go away, I don't buy People magazine. I don't click on anything that says Kardashian. I want them to go away. Same here with Michael Andrew. I'm just soon he'd go away. You know, I mean,
you're done with Andrew.
Him. Well, I've never been on board with him. I've never been on board with him. So Eric got me all worked up. Am I going to watch it? And I'm watching this. And I'm like, I don't feel enraged at all by this. This is the same rhetoric that a lot of these guys have. And so what enraged me was, like, A, Brett Hawke gave him the platform. You know, I'm more mad at that. And B, you're like, well, why didn't he engage him about this? Like, well, again, when I'm watching this, because he didn't engage him, I'm assuming that Brett Hawke's on board with the same things he's saying. Again, I don't know. And that's the problem with the line of questioning, I guess.
Brett Hawke, well, hold on, let me push back on that. Brett Hawke did say that he had been vaccinated and boosted. So it's not like
right, but then he also says like I'm not for the masks and stuff like this. So
both were like, I hate masks. Well,
yeah, again, it kind of leaves a lot of doors open, and so there was none of the stuff. What I was mad at is like the guy said, like, so you're kind of a controversial guy. Do you like that? I'm like, here he is. He's going to lean into being the heel. You know, the pro wrestler. Like we need the whoever the Hulk Hogan is going to battle. Like we need you to be the heel. I thought, there you go. He's going to embrace being the bad guy, and he's like, oh, I don't want to be a controversial. Like, oh. So you're going to keep playing the victim card. And then the whole interview was how he's a victim. It's like, so listen, you have the right to make this choice. And I want everything that goes along with, so I don't want repercussions, I guess what I'm saying. So then he's like, I'm going to make this choice. I'm going to make this stand. I'm going to like say what I feel about this whenever anyone asks me. And again, I appreciate that, someone has to ask him first, much like the Kardashians, someone has to take the picture. I don't have to look. Someone has to ask. And so he has the right to do that. But you don't get the right to be like, well, I'm going to do everything else too. And then he kept playing that victim card. Like, look, Caleb didn't have his mask on. I'm getting persecuted. And again,
nobody cares. This is about you.
But it is because he's a homeschool dude. Again, if you say homeschooled to anyone, again, the 8 listeners, maybe one's homeschooled. If you say that, hey, dude, that guy's homeschooled, right away, you're like, there's going to be some social aspects that might not be up to par. Like this guy, again, I'm making a reach based on this. Like he's been the center of his own universe for a very long time. It's a me kind of a world for him. He swims by himself. His family's kind of insular. They're used to like, we're going to have these kind of ideas. And for him, it's like the mask isn't about him not, spreading to other people. It's about, well, how's this going to protect me? And I think that's where a lot of these problems come in with this whole, becomes a political structure thing is like, if you just look at the mask, what is the mask supposed to do? And like when I first moved to the West Coast, there's a lot of Asian people here that are used to wearing masks, and before COVID hit or anything, there's someone walking down the street with a mask. And I'm like, well, I'm kind of mad at this. Why do they think that we're all going to get you sick or something? And it's like, and then you start to meet a lot of people. You ask them like, what's the mask? Like, well, if I feel I'm sick, I don't want to get anyone else sick. And so it's the me part of the community feel versus the me getting hurt by the community. And like, I'm wearing the mask to protect myself. I'm doing this like I'm a healthy individual. I don't need this. And so everything is kind of rooted around, again, he's the center of his own universe. He has his team, and he qualified what his team meant because Brett Hawke asked him, like mom, dad, sister. And my team, they have moved as a pod again. And so it's not about being in a team. And I think as we've all coached, part of the thing about being on a team was like, you're in there trying hard. The person next to you is trying hard. It becomes like this community thing. Everyone's bringing something to the table. That's never been part of his world, as far as I know. Again, I don't know the guy. I don't really care to know the guy. I'm just thinking, again, this is who he is. He's spouting the same rhetoric a lot of these people have of flawed science. But again, it's someone had to give him the platform to do it. And I think, again, you're not entitled to be heard. You're entitled to freedom of speech. Everyone has a right to freedom of speech, but you don't have a right to, I need to be heard. And then I also should be at the Olympics. What I'm more mad at is, well, then USA Swimming or the Olympic Committee is like, you're not coming. Draw a line and just do what you're going to do. Again, he didn't, he's done everything that he's allowed to do. He's speaking on every platform that people are allowing him to speak on. It's just, again, I didn't expect anything different from him. Again, just the level of entitlement is pretty high. Level of entitlement to go off to a meet that you're not trained to do. Again, they let him go. So is it his fault for going? He's probably making money off of going. He also kind of basically said, gee, I didn't think I'd fall on my face. I'm used to, in a sense, like I'm fit, I can race.
So much ego there. Yeah.
But that's crazy. I think it all ties together though. It's that same me-centered, ego-centered entitlement level. And again, I don't begrudge the guy for it. That's what I like about it is that that's who he is, and he's coming out and saying that. I just was hoping he'd like lean into being the heel a little bit more. Starting to, be the bad guy. USA Swimming needs like some sort of rivalry kind of a thing. Be the bad guy, but he doesn't want to be the bad guy.
Hard early on.
But now he wants to be the victim, and that's what I got a problem with. Is again, you're gonna play the victim card. Oh, they're all this media stuff, all this, and I'm sure he didn't expect this level of backlash. Sure. But again, there's going to be backlash. I mean, I'm sure, Chris, the first time that you said something about Schubert and you're like, geez, this is what he's done wrong. This is what he's done wrong. And you're still going to get bad messages. I have a problem with people sending the kid death threats at the Olympics.
Sure.
He said that happened. I'd have a problem with that, of course. I wouldn't have a problem if he's like Kyrie Irving, where you're like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to get vaccinated. He's vocal about it. It's like, okay, the repercussion is you're not going to play. Okay, I'll sit.
Yeah. And
but of course
I have no problem with Maya Dorado sending some tweets before, like, that part was a little bit absurd when Brett was having you don't do that right before. Like, come on, man.
He admitted to being on social media when he should not have been.
Yeah.
Like, anybody who's
that's
smart
hard,
enough knows
but still
not to be in that world.
But so again, it's
somebody told him he was wrong. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all. They didn't attack him personally. They just told him he was wrong.
It's just amazing, again, the amount of holes in the knowledge that he's going to have, but he's going to be like, you know what, there's a lot of scientists saying this, but there's that one over there that is like, well, is that really a scientist? Again, when you say scientist, you should cite some articles. And that's the thing, is that I didn't even read Dorado's tweets, but I'm like, she's a pre-med and she's going to go to med school. She's going to know how to read a scientific article. Michelangelo, I don't know if he knows how to read it. I'm assuming he doesn't. But again, he didn't create the Brett Hawke platform for him to speak about this stuff. Brett kind of did and kind of encouraged it. So again, this is the same rhetoric you hear from a lot of these people that do that. I just wish, again, the level of entitlement wasn't so much behind it. And the whole, I'm such a victim card. I'm victim. It's like, man up, be the bad guy, embrace it, enjoy that moment.
I guess if we had any anti-vax listeners left, RIP. The anti-vax, I mean, out of our 10 listeners, we might have had one, and now we're down 10%. Joel.
Yeah.
Based on
I'm okay with that. Again, if that's the hill I'm dying on, so be it.
Yep. All right.
Chris, what's your take? You had one left.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Gosh, I was going to forget my own thing again. While I was criticizing all the technical stuff, I forgot to mention, how can he talk about his damn 50 free without acknowledging my YouTube video with 10K views, breaking down how he gets absolutely smoked off the block in a 50 freestyle. And if he were just to address a few fundamentals, he could be competitive with Caleb Dressel and perhaps even beat him. But there's like no discussion. It's just, he doesn't like that. To me, aside from the silliness about my own personal thing, how does he not even recognize in a race that short that he is getting crushed on a skill portion that he could just address? He's a very good athlete. He could figure it out how to have an amazing start. And he's actually bigger than Dressel. He could beat Dressel off the blocks. He could. I know that's crazy to say since Dressel's so amazing off the blocks, but he could do it.
One positive I thought that came from it was interesting to hear him talk about the feel of the water and like how he could feel the competitors coming up. So it's interesting to just listen to elite level athletes and talk about their feel for the water and how they can feel things around him. I think he's like off base on what he's talking about for his own breaststroke, but It's cool to hear him talk about, like, again, the feel for the water. But that's it. And so again, if I ever listened to Michelangelo, I would listen to that one segment and then everything else would be like, I'm just going to take the earphones out until he's done moving his lips and we'll move on with our day.
Or skip ahead, skip.
Yeah. Keep hit that +10.
All right. From one hot button to another, the NCAA Board of Governors came out with a big fat nothing burger of a statement on what they might do with regards to trans athletes. This is something we've only briefly touched upon in this podcast. I think to a certain extent, we've exercised our own abundance of caution. So I'm aware of the contradiction that we're going to criticize the NCAA for. I think, in my opinion, I'm going to criticize them for being too cautious in this instance when I myself have been extremely cautious talking about this. But I don't know. I will just lead off directly with, I think what I saw in the NCAA Board of Governors statement, which basically said, we're not going to make our own rule change. We're going to wait for the NGBs to change their rules around trans participation. in their sports, and then what our rule will be whatever they come up with, right? And I think it points to an essential problem in these hierarchical, like bureaucratic systems, in that because there's always sort of a higher authority to wait for, you can just go like, yeah, I know I have the power to do something about this situation, but I'll just wait for somebody else to do it. And of course, USA Swimming already came out in the days after it and said, well, we'll just wait for FINA to do something. Now, they did say that they expect FINA to figure out something shortly. What does shortly mean in the context of FINA? I have no idea. You can hear the skepticism in my voice, but it does match my prediction that I've not made on this podcast, because I think, essentially the elephant in the room here is Leah Thomas's participation in NCAA swimming is the undertone for all of the sort of conversation that has propped up. And I think I've been saying this since the beginning of the year, the NCAA will not change anything. This horse is out of the barn for this season. Leah Thomas will compete at women's NCAA championships at the end of the year. That's going to happen, right? The earliest anything is going to change rules wise will be for next year's NCAA season. And I reasonably sure that something will change, but I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Eric, what was your reaction to the NCAA Board of Governors statement and everything?
Not
else?
surprised at all.
Right.
Just trying to stay away as much as possible right now. I mean, I do agree in the sense that it's really hard to just make a change halfway through January, less than a month out from conference championships, 2 months out from NCAAs. You really can't make that kind of change midstream, but the idea of them relying on an NGB and then knowing what we know about USA Swimming and how they operate, I wasn't expecting anything to come from that office anytime soon, let alone anything of a surprise, other than let's wait for FINA. I just how many more times can you kick the can down the road before you have to address whatever it is?
As many times as they can.
Being
as many times
addressed.
as they can.
I mean, it's I guess, given the changes within society, we're going to see more and more trans athletes competing, which regardless of what the format becomes in the next 2, 3 to 5 to 10 years, I mean, it is yet to be seen, but it's important that trans people have the opportunity to compete and have normal life experiences and things like that. We just have to navigate the current situation and try to come up with some kind of solution as soon as possible while still being as thorough as possible. But just the hard part is that we live in this time of reactionary, like it's right now. It's like, if this isn't happening, then the whole world is going to collapse around us, and this is not, what I mean? It's just, and it is just a person trying to live their life, and they're living within the confines of the rules that are in front of them. Now the rules change next year, and it changes for Leah to the point where she can't compete against the rest of the NCAA women, then so be it. She has to adjust to the rules that are there. But in the short term, it's like, how do you get super angry about something that just we're evolving with in real time?
Right.
I don't know.
Right. I mean, yeah. Okay. So a couple of things I want to pivot to Joel, but I'm going to ask a question off the front, and then you can talk about whatever you want. But, one of the things I guess I've been careful not to say, you said it here, so you're braver than me, Eric, is like coming up with a solution. Some people would say there's no need for a solution. What the situation we have right now, and I think, like, for instance, Skylar Bilar, who's also a trans athlete, competed for Harvard, essentially came out in support of Leah and said that the current rules are fair, right? So is there actually a need for a solution? What do you think, Joel?
Well, I think that's,
Is there a
again,
problem?
yeah, I got a problem with people sending death threats to her coach and to her. I got a real problem with that. That's nuts. Because again, it's the same line I have with Michael Andrews. So I think I'm being consistent here. It's like, this woman's not doing anything wrong. She followed the rules.
Yeah.
The rules said you start therapy in one year, you can start to do it. And the thing is, and this is going to be irony alert. So maybe you should put something up like, she apparently, so she's the first transgender athlete. So I get it. We can't come to a decision. It's like, so no one thought ahead, like, hey, Caitlyn Jenner is a woman. What happens if she would have been a woman right from the? It's like, well, it's like, as soon as this person's about to set records or start to win or take my daughter's medal away from her, now we have an issue. The issue was long ago. The issue should have been settled. It's like, okay, well, this is the rule to settle this. Then great. Then that's what we're going to go with, and we're all on board with that. What I hate is, again, when a governing body, like you said, kicks the can down the road. College swimming came out with a response right away. You know why? It's like one person at the top of that group, they can decide. NCAA's committees covering everything, worrying legal action. By kicking the can down the road, they can do it. When again, it's this woman's life right now, and she followed the rules. So do I have a problem with her swimming? I don't. Again, there's a lot of issues that come up from this, though. Obviously, like, again, she went through puberty with a higher level of testosterone. Her muscle is going to be different, things like that, whatever. But you came up with a rule. You're supposed to have thought of that. This isn't the first transgender athlete ever. But because she's going to set a record, or she's going to win, or something like that could happen, now everyone's going to be going crazy. And what I fear the most out of all this is kind of like the mob mentality or vigilante justice that comes when you decide, not you, but we decide that, like, whatever entity hasn't done their job. So I look back to the Rio Olympics with, WADA didn't do its job. And so now Lily King becomes, the sheriff in town, vigilante justice, calling people out. What's going to happen to NCAA is, because again, NCAA didn't make a rule. Leah's following the rules. Her coach is following the rules, and she's up on the block. Everyone's going to be cool with that?
No.
Again, it's like,
it's going to be horrible.
But that's the thing. They're going to be horrible because they felt like the rules unjust. Like, well, now you feel the rules unjust. Where were you 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Whenever this rule is
made.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the issue I have. Again, if someone's following the rules, that was the rule set up. What are you going to do? Again, as the longer I coach, the more I appreciate when people would make a decision, a hard decision, an easy decision. Just make a decision and then move forward with it. And if it's a wrong decision, what are they going to do to rectify that? Or if it's a right decision, how are they going to go for that? But too many times we base, especially right now, we base everything on a person's one decision. I always look at like that, the Patriots, Seahawks, like Super Bowl. Again, instead of giving it to beast mode, they throw it. Always a moron. It's like, one game ago, Pete Carroll's a genius. Now he's a moron. So one decision, we've decided that he can't coach anymore. He should lose his job. We're so much into that mode of like this one decision now. And it's also, like you said, reactionary. It's like, I would rather be proactive than reactive. And now we're all of a sudden, everyone's reactive. And the worst part is you get the worst of society out there, like sending death threats and things like this. This is a person who's just following the rules in my eyes. Again, it's not my decision to make. And again, it seems like being an old white guy like myself, we've made a lot of decisions that affect people that aren't ourselves. My experience is a lot different, obviously, than a female athlete. So I can understand a female athlete feeling that this isn't fair. My growing up experiences are a lot different than a transgender athlete. So for her, a change in the rules right now would be unfair. And so I just try to, if you remove the variables, take whatever it is, religion, biology, everything out of there. It's like, this person followed the rules, whatever that rule is. So insert a different variable. You're playing tic-tac-toe. I can't make another square. That's the rule. And again, they're like, well, let's make another square. We'll include a lane 9. I read about that on someone's idea. I hear about people saying, well, let her swim exhibition. Again, that's just kicking the can one more time. Like Eric said, this door is open, and more power to these people. And I hope that obviously in a utopian world, I wish that everyone could at least agree that this is the rule and we're going to play by this rule.
Right.
And what level that is, I don't know. Because again, I don't know all the different variables. Like they're like, well, what testosterone level? And we've talked about this. You look on a lot of women professional athletes. You can look at them and say, boy, that person has a lot more testosterone than that person. Is she not a woman? No, she's still a woman, obviously. But you see it like, again, just in jawline, in hair, and things like that come with testosterone. I think the more we get into science, the more you learn what a spectrum we all are on, So,
Right.
so I know it's a hot topic, but again, it's like, let's boil the emotion out of it. Like right now, there's a rule in place. This person's following the rule. You got hatred. Put the hatred of the people that make the rule and have them adjust it, but have that adjusted in an amount of time where people can adapt to the new rule.
Yeah. No, I think you touch on something that I absolutely agree with, which is if you can't change the rules midway through a season.
Right.
I just think like that's a consistent standard. Like, and even if that means you have to go, in some cases, you have to go, wow, we really messed up with this rule.
Yeah.
And, somebody in
Ride
top
it
of
out.
a bureaucratic organization has to fall on their sword at the end of the year and take whatever lumps, for allowing, a unfair rule. I feel as if this rule was designed with the intention that I hear all three of us expressing on this podcast, which is that transgender athletes should be able to participate in collegiate sports, right? We want them to participate. That's a goal. That's a noble goal to have. I think there's so much positivity that can come out of a rule set that encourages participation. I inherently, and you guys don't have to go on the record or not, I inherently do look at this rule set and think it's not the best. It's not the best we could come up with. Right. I don't have all the answers for what the best we could come up with. I do like some of the stuff where, they're saying we could have an open division and then a women's division. Maybe that needs some tweaking around language. Because I recognize that Leah Thomas is a woman, so excluding her from the women's category just doesn't ring entirely right to me. But I think it's tough because of the way that this all came to be. It's opened itself up on both sides to so many bad faith attacks. There's so many people attacking Leah for, as you say, just participating within the rules that were agreed upon before the season started. And I think that's completely disingenuous. On the other hand, I have also seen, Skylar Bilar, and I disagree with this, in his Instagram post said, there's no advantage to going through male puberty. I don't agree with that. And I don't think that makes me transphobic.
That's the thing is, I don't know. And the thing is, for us to be able to spout our opinion is one thing, but another thing is we don't know. And geez, I wish there was like some sort of like group that could decide something like the NCAA, where they could like actually like have, if you're going to have a committee, instead of making committees to write up these kicking the can down the road kind of decisions, come up with a committee of science of female athletes, of transgender athletes, and bring them together. Instead of a bunch of goobers like us talking about it.
They have access to the most prestigious academic institutions in the world in their membership. They can go to any one of the Power 5 conferences. Heck, they could have two universities from every Power 5 conference submit doctors and scientists and have them come together and do the research and come up with something, because every single one of those doctors and scientists are going to be objective. That is their life. That is their goal. It does not matter to them. It's coming up with the best solution based on actual science and evidence. Like, it's just.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, guys. That's why I keep you guys around. You come up with smart ideas like that.
Yeah. I also just hope Leah is, like, at this point, gone dark on social media. I know she shouldn't have to, but at this point, like, you're blocking all phone numbers that you don't know. You are answering the phone. You are letting text messages through. You are off of all social media in any way, shape, or form. Like, there is even a clause within the team that we don't talk about news articles or what said somebody about who. It's like, it just insulate the situation in the short term, because that's for everybody's benefit. Just allowing Leah to get through this season as best you can, because it's already hard enough. All this other stuff is just
And
making it worse.
What I've got a problem with too is how, again, we can just throw things out where she has to go dark on social media now.
Yeah.
And again, she can't be whatever age she is and just be a senior in college anymore. And so I admire that, again, because I wouldn't have the guts to be able to stand up and be able to, like, I'm going to be the forefront of this. But the worst part is, like, people can throw their comments out there, and they do, and they throw out death threats, and they do, and there's absolutely no repercussions on them. And then years from now, they can be like, geez, looking back, I was wrong on this, or boy, I shouldn't have done that. Boy, I shouldn't beat myself up so much about this.
Follow up.
But that's the thing is, meanwhile, these people are left scarred from all the insults, all those things getting thrown at them, and like, oh, I was wrong. Oh, yeah. Well, again, it's like, it's nothing to us to look back and like, boy, was I wasn't as well educated. And we see all these self-help books on how to get through that. It's like, well, how about these people, again, that we've been like criticizing and attacking nonstop? And again, the death threats are where I've got the issue. And the issue that, again, the rule was made, and all of a sudden now people want to change it. Will Chamberlain is like Duncan by standing in the lane forever. Like, hey, we got to make a 3-second rule. Then you go, you know what, this game, second half, can't stand there anymore.
Right.
So that's just me.
No. Yeah. And I think your point makes me want to just highlight one more aspect of this that I feel free to criticize. And that's SwimSwam's coverage, I think, has been horrible. I think that they literally gathered a bunch of kindling, set it on fire, and now are reporting every day on the size of the fire for clicks. I mean, I think they probably think they're being objective because they're presenting one side of it, and then they've done a podcast with Leah. But disproportionately, in my mind, they have opened her up to so many attacks, reprinting this stuff from the Daily Mail, who's been incredibly invasive, that just found a way to get into her social media photos and spread all sorts of BS. Anonymous sources, say X and Y and Z about what's going on the team. And they've just sort of like, oh, we're just being objective. We'll just present this. And then their freaking comment section, which everybody knows who's listened to this podcast knows how I feel about the comment section. It is just a place for almost unlimited amounts of hate to be spewed towards Leah, overwhelmingly. And it doesn't really help to have people on there countering it, in my opinion. It only seems to make it worse. So I think they've been reckless and irresponsible in the way that they've presented it. You guys disagree. You disagree.
No, I don't disagree.
Oh, okay.
I don't disagree. No, I don't disagree.
I was like,
no, I can't. Like, anytime you're sourcing the Daily Mail, you've lost your way. Like,
yeah.
There's no reason
that's
ever
a horrible
to do that
tabloid
at all.
from England.
Yeah. And I go back to the phrase I used earlier with regards to Michael Andrew. Yeah, the comment section, hot garbage. Like, yeah. It's just, I don't get it. Like,
well, again, it goes down to just the number of platforms available now. Again, and I think we're being consistent with both these topics, and also with a lot of different things, is that the more you give a platform like this, the more it gets to be said. It's just in our psychology where we listen to something like, is that true or not true? And instead of like, all of us kind of going like, well, what's the source? And most of us are pretty good at what's the source? Is this a legitimate source or not? Like, I had to sit with my mom down, like, all right, when you open up the internet, this is not a real article. This is not a real article. This, again, Fox News it's called Fox Entertainment for a reason. It's not news, and so it's the same thing, like going through it. So like a lot of these, like the Brett Hawke thing, it's one more platform, one more time that things that are, again, being said that aren't based in science. And again, if someone just like they don't want to go vaccination, again, I don't agree with that, but I don't hold anything against them. If they're living that clean lifestyle and they're all for this, and they're going to live off in Montana by themselves in a small little community, great. But again, the more you give platforms like this, and again, when SwimSwam can make money on these hot clicks, again, what happens down the road? Again, if something negative does happen, they can go, well, geez, We didn't tell anyone to do that.
Right.
Well, it's going to happen is because it's been, like you said, it's just, it's pretty dry kindling there, and just keep on fanning it.
Yeah. All right. Let's finish with what's more of a feel good story. I guess maybe not a feel good story if you really don't like David Marsh, but I'm going to tell you why, regardless of what you think about David Marsh, this is a feel good story. David Marsh is coming back to college swimming. He's going to be finishing University of California, Berkeley men's swimming and diving's season with them. Joel, you've always been a huge fan of Marsh. What's your reaction to this news?
I look at this as like, you always kind of look at this stuff as like, I'm just trying to follow the money. What's going to happen. And so my thought is basically this is a power move to consolidate men's and women's swimming at Cal. Durden gets a bump in pay. Coach McKeever ends up having to retire. Not having to, gets to retire, is retires, but Dave gets control of both, and becomes kind of like, I just look at kind of like back in
Dave?
the 80s.
Sorry, Durden.
Durden, I'm sorry, that's right.
You
the Daves.
clarify your Daves.
Yeah. So I look at like the 80s, like, well, shoot, now Russia's got 4 different intercontinental ballistic missiles. We'll have to get 6. And so Florida all of a sudden combines teams. Caleb Dressel comes in the fold, Katie Ledecky comes in the fold. What's Cal going to do to counter? And so like, well, we get this, we're going to bring in, hopefully, like maybe we get Kathleen Baker to come back up into here. We expand our pro team. I get control of both the teams. Again, this is all wild speculation because I have nothing else to do other than, hang out at the house. But my wild speculation is that this is and probably not the first step either. This is probably like step 12, because we didn't see 1 through 11, to like merge both teams, get a bump in pay, get it all in one house, get a bigger pro team going, and kind of counter what Florida's doing.
Yeah. Although if you want to win more Olympic medals in swimming, women's swimming, David Marsh is a massive downgrade from Terry McKeever. So,
of course,
yeah, that's not a good arms escalation in that paradigm.
Well, that's the thing. Well, my model is based again on following the money, not following the medal count.
Okay, got it.
So what's the
silly
benefit
me
for
thinking those two
here?
are related? Yeah.
What's the benefit for everyone involved is kind of what I'm wondering here. And again, Marsh again, just another opportunity to kind of keep on coaching. Because again, if you're going to live in you're going to live in Berkeley or San Diego, I got my choice picked. But again, my choice would be, I guess, based on lifestyle and not wanting to pay $4,000 for a crappy apartment, like overlooking a bunch of homeless people or people without homes. I don't know what the popular thing is. I'm sorry. Edit that out.
We'll in transition.
We'll leave in that Joel has sensitivity to people who are
in a housing
without a place to live. Eric, what's up? Backstroker to backstroker, I want you to level with David Marsh about this. Okay.
Well, being a part of the Speedo world and being the fact that Cal's a Speedo team, both Daves are Speedo coaches. Young master coach Chase is going on paternity leave.
Yeah.
It's at a really inconvenient time, but inconvenient only in the sense that it's inconvenient for the swim team.
Yeah.
They're having a child. He's going to be there to take care of it. So it's my understanding that Coach Marsh is the closest, probably most able coaching wise to fill in on a short-term basis. And since Kathleen Baker I don't know what she's up to at this point, but it seems like he's got a little bit more free time with regards to where to be and when to be there. And, I'm not saying that the tinfoil hat theories aren't good. I would be a lot more fun if that were the case, for sure. But, it just seems like these two Daves are comfortable with each other. Durden knows that he can just be like, okay, Marsh, this is what these swimmers need to do for this 2-hour session. Just let me know what they do afterwards and how it went. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I think you're right. I think if anything, what stands out in David Marsh's career is that he can be really good in these situations. Like I actually
on the fly short term.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think like I have always heard through the grapevine that he is an excellent like Olympic training camp coach, for instance. Being in that environment, getting people ready to compete at the Olympic Games. And in essence, that he's coming here at the late stage of a season to get these guys ready to compete for an NCAA championship. And I think he's really well qualified, of course, just even setting aside that particular skill on it. And the part of it that I do think is a feel good story, you know, and maybe, of course, as usual, revealing some of my bias here. I think it's amazing that Chase Kreitler gets to go on paternity leave from coaching at Cal. Like
he has the support from his head coach.
Yeah, he's got the support from his head coach. Go be with, you know, I don't know that it's his first child or not. It doesn't really matter in essence. But it's great that he's going to be able to take some time away and just be there. It's something for certain that I wish I had more time to do with my first child. And I was living in Denmark where theoretically you thought like, oh yeah, well, I heard that, you know, Danish fathers get 18 months of paternity leave. Well, that was not the case. I had 2 weeks, which is a lot more than many people get in America, but still, hey, if for anybody that's had a kid, you know, that's no time whatsoever. And even within that 2 weeks, I had people calling me in to do this, do that. Oh, can you just come in for a second? And, you know, And it was really stressful. And so I'm happy for Chase. I'm really, I want to give plaudits for Dave Durden for saying like, all right, you got to go on paternity leave and we'll figure this out. And he pulled a pretty big rabbit out of his hat to solve sort of whatever downside there might be for the team in that instance.
Man, I want to change my take now. I feel
you're anti-paternity leave, Joel. You don't like fathers.
I'm all for this now. This is great. At first, I thought it was a countering Florida move, but now I'm like, that's pretty cool. I like your version better. I feel better about the day. It's like a little sunnier out now. You guys have changed me. I feel a lot better now. No, seriously, because I've never heard anything bad about like, you know, Durden and the men's program or anything like that. That's why I'm like wondering why they would make this change. But now hearing this end, that makes a lot more sense, and that's pretty cool. Again, because we always talk about lifestyle for coaches. So good. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm like you said, I think it's pretty good, especially because like if you look on Swim Swam and go to the comment section, there's a lot of darts being thrown. So I mean, for them to be like, I'll just take these darts, I don't care. That's awesome. Yeah. Again, more power to them. Cool. All right. I changed my mind.
Great.
Delete out my take.
No, we won't.
Your take is fun. That take is fun, but
I know it was kind of
doesn't mean that both can't live in your head. You can both have that conspiracy theory and be in support.
I grew up in the United States. I don't work that way. It's one or the other.
One or the other. Yeah.
It's either OJ is guilty or LA police are corrupt. I can't have both thoughts going.
Anyway, you always have to say one thing at the end like that, Joel. Thanks to everybody for listening. I'll be back next week. I've got a big guest coming up. Peter Verhoff, head coach of Bowls, is coming on the podcast. Speaking of paternity leave, well, actually, he covered for me on my honeymoon, but you know, close enough. Anyway. Really excited to talk to him and hopefully bring those hard-hitting questions that I've brought up earlier in this podcast to that. I don't know what they are yet. I'll have to do a little bit more homework. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you to everybody for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Chris.